AI enhances, but it doesn't replace empathy, judgment, or trust. That's the human in the loop. And these are the words of our guest today, Tracy, Sheen. And really, what we're going after is talking about the AI revolution, where leadership and humanity fits in, and ultimately, how can we harness the power of AI without losing the human connection at the core of effective leadership? Really, that's the question we're looking to tackle today with Tracy. And if you don't know who Tracy is, she is a technology strategist. She's an author. She, of course, is a speaker. She specializes in making technology accessible and actionable for leaders and organization. She's also an AI advocate for small business and leadership. She's recognized for her practical human first strategies and digital transformation. And she's also award winning expert. She draws on years of consulting for entrepreneurs, organizations, and leaders adapting to fast changing tech landscapes. And then finally, she's a thought leader in this whole space. But of course, she's a popular podcast guest, conference speaker, and advisor of the intersection of AI, leadership, and organizational culture. And a couple key takeaways you're going to get away from my conversation today with Tracy is, first off, if you haven't realized it yet, well, AI is already here. And you know what? Don't be afraid of it. You're likely using AI every day without even realizing it, from streaming services to loyalty cards and everything else in between. The key isn't whether to use AI, but rather how to harness it intentionally for leadership success. The next thing is to start small and win big, rather than being overwhelmed by all the possibilities, because there are a ton of possibilities and they grow every day. Tracy recommends one thing at a time approach. Find a single frustrating bottleneck, pilot an AI solution with your team, and build confidence with the quick wins. And then finally, your last takeaway from this episode is keep humans at the center. AI should be seen as a collaborative assistant, not, I say again, not a replacement for people. Human judgment, empathy, and trust remain irreplaceable. So treat your AI like you would treat a new team member. Train it, guide it, and set it up for success. And these are the key takeaways, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Tracy Sheen all about AI. Welcome one, welcome all to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, a weekly podcast series dedicated to helping you hit peak performance across the three domains of leadership. Those being leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. This podcast couples my 20 years of military experience as a senior Canadian Army officer with world-class guests to bring you the most complete podcast of leadership going. And for more, feel free to check out our website at movingforwardleadership.com. And with that, let's get to the show. Tracy, man, welcome to the show. So good to have you here today.
G'day, Scott. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I am super stoked because we're going to talk about AI and like technology, and I'm going to be brutally honest. I use AI a lot. I'm all about like tech and all this stuff. Like literally, we built ourselves a new home, and I swapped out our light switches for smart switches. I think I swapped out like 30 light switches. Like I can control almost all of my lights in my house from my cell phone, which really freaked out my wife the other night because she was home, I was not, and our kid that I was just talking to you about was playing with the lights through the Google Home.
Gotcha. And she suddenly was calling you going, our house is
She's like,
possessed,
what
Scott.
the hell? The house is possessed. Anyway.
So funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Anyway, I say all that because like we're talking about AI. I use I think three different AI tools to help me produce these episodes, which is awesome. Like, it is phenomenal. But now let's get into how leaders can use AI, because one of the things I hear about from leaders out there is like, ugh, leadership is all about leading people, not, ones and zero people, if you know what I mean, but like legitimate actual people. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. I want to know what you think about that statement and that kind of feeling that's out there right now, that, I guess, kind of scaredness. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's overwhelm, to be honest. Like, it's just that one more thing. Like, oh man, here we go again. Like, I've just gotten used to having to deal with social media being a thing, and now you're throwing AI at me. I think it's really interesting. You say that you're all in on AI. The thing for me is everybody already is, whether they know it or not. Just because you've switched all your lights out to smart lights, fantastic. But if you're watching a streaming service, if you're using Google Maps, if you're using, loyalty cards, any social media, you're already in AI and playing with it every single day. So I want to kind of take that, like, oh, I'm scared of it, off the counter, because you're already using it, right? Like, now you just need to rope that bull and bring it in and actually start to tame that sucker a little bit. So that's the first thing to kind of get out in the open, is that nothing to be scared of. We've all been using it for years. For me, AI is really the new leadership literacy. So if we kind of think back to the 80s, when financial literacy was the thing, AI really for me is that new leadership literacy that we need to be harnessing and using as a collaborative tool rather than a competitive tool.
Ooh, I love the final point there. Collaborative tool vice the competitive tool. Because the thing I've been saying for a long time, and I'm trying to get my team to understand, is like, hey, this isn't here to replace. Let's use this to enhance.
Mm.
Let's use this to be more efficient. Let's call a spade right out of the gate. Yes, there will be jobs that will disappear due to AI. Got it. But those people can get re-rolled into different roles. They'll move on to different things, and life will still carry on. Like the printing press, that caused some people lose
Exactly.
their jobs. Poor guy's hand is no longer cramping because he's been writing the same page for 500 days in a row over and over and over, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just an evolution.
Absolutely. And exactly what you've said. We've lived through this so many times before. When the Model T rolled off the production line, everybody who was shoeing horses was like, well, what are we going to do? They didn't see the future of, petrol bowsers or gasoline bowsers and infrastructure for roads and everything else that goes along with it. So you're absolutely right. I can't see that, particularly at the moment. AI will not take your job. But if you don't learn how to leverage, manipulate, and utilize AI, you're probably, on your way out. So it's the people that are picking up the AI tools and starting to make their current roles redundant that are going to be the ones that leaders look at and go, hey, Scott, I'm going to keep you because you clearly know how to use these tools for good to make the company more efficient or to increase productivity or whatever. But AI as a tool for leaders, for me, it's about you've got to keep the humans at the center. AI enhances, as you said, but it doesn't replace that empathy. It doesn't replace judgment. It doesn't replace trust. That's the human in the loop.
Awesome. Love it. Human in the center, human in the loop. We got to have it. Now, you were hinting at like the positivity side of this. I really want to dive down this kind of chain. So what's your best advice, out of the gate to start for leaders? Like, where do we start? Because I think that's probably sometimes I find when we have events like this, and I literally was coaching one of my subordinates today about this type of topic, and just bear with me for a second because as I just reminisced, but I find the most difficult points for people to figure out is, one, how do we start? And two, as we say in army speak, what's our desired end state? Or in simple terms, where do we want to go? I find those two things the most difficult for people to define. So when it comes from an AI perspective, what's your advice there for leaders to say, hey, how do we start? And then, like, where the heck do we even want to go with this?
Yeah, look, you've hit on a really valuable point. You've got to have a learning mindset right now. The days of kind of being able to sit on your hands and wait for stuff to come it's gone. So you need to be encouraging and you need to be adopting a learning mindset. So whether that's you committing to reading one AI article a week or a podcast, or you're trialing a demo tool or whatever, but you need to be adopting that curiosity and that mindset. I think in terms of leadership, for me, it starts with the people, right? Get a team conversation going together and really, get them to have a what's the one thing that's really annoying you at the moment, Scott? Like what's the one thing in your job that is bugging the living, hell out of you? If you could get rid of that one thing, what would it be? What are our clients telling us that is the bottleneck? What's driving you bonkers because it's taking up way too much of your time that you're not actually doing the stuff that you love? And let everybody have a bit of a bitch fest around the table about, oh my God, I didn't start this role to do this, it's taking up all my time putting stuff into Excel spreadsheets or whatever. Let them get it all out, because that's the gold. That's where you can go, okay, awesome. Let's throw that all up on a whiteboard, and now let's figure out as a group, what's the one thing that we want to give a go first. Small steps, big impact. You don't have to overhaul a whole business overnight. Pick a pilot project. Pick something that's a personal learning journey for a team or for a department, and pilot that and get them to really take that leadership role and that charge forward for the business to kind of go, okay, we are going to, put a scheduling tool in place over the next 30 days. And if we do that, we know that it's going to save us, 5 emails a week to that one client trying to get a time together to have a chat, whatever that one thing is. But agree as a team, if we can get that one thing sorted, look for the quick win like you do when you start a gym, find that quick win, find the low hanging fruit, and build on it from there.
What I'm hearing from you there is just, it's basically the very simple principle of, that 1% rule, right? Like 1% improvement, and then let's do it on a daily. And I love that. Like, what's that one thing that you can't stand doing that maybe we can go ahead and automate? And God, heaven forbid, like, we get rid of this TPS report, but please, let's get rid of this TPS report.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you get that reference.
Thing.
I don't know if you get the
I mean,
TPS
a report is
reference.
A report, right? Like as soon as you put the word report in there, I'm like, I feel you, Scott. I gotcha. But tell me what a TPS is.
Oh no, it's a TPS reports out of a movie called Office Space. Phenomenal movie from the early 2000s. Had Jennifer Aniston in it. I love it. I reference it all the time. So the listener who's listening to this show is probably tired of me mentioning TPS reports, because it's probably the number one thing I talk about.
Gotcha. I mean, the big thing there, though, is that one thing, like as you mentioned, because what happens, we're overachievers, right? As leaders, we're always looking for the extra. How can we just squeeze that extra bit of juice? But when we do that, that's when we typically go into overwhelm and do nothing. So we might end up with a list of 10 things that we want to do. That's fine, but pick one, right? The moment you try and do more than one thing, that's when the focus gets scattered, the overwhelm creeps in, oh, it's too hard, I've just got to do this first. That all creeps in and nothing happens. But if you all commit to like, okay, this is our one project, this is the thing that we're going to pilot and we're going to see that sucker through, then as a team, you're all kind of, pushing towards that one end goal where you can hold each other accountable. Scott, what have you done today to move that thing forward? Like as your check-ins, as your everything, you're all on, rowing in the same direction. I don't know how many tired cliches and metaphors I can pull out to say the same thing, but it's keep the one thing the one thing.
Yeah, no, and I want to dive deeper into this, one thing, because you mentioned like there could be 10 things, which is 1,000,000% right. Like I
Yeah.
literally, as soon as you said that, like I had the picture in my mind, and I'm army guy, won't be shocked, probably won't shock you, but like I'm big on prioritization, like priorities,
Mm.
priorities, priorities. But what I want the listener to take away from this, and I'll let you rebut my point here if or think you're throwing your thoughts. But when I think of prioritization, and I'm just like, prioritization in this 10 way you're talking might not be the biggest bang for your buck. But what it might be is the one that enables the team or gets the team using it the most, or gets the team settled with it and gets them confident with it or comfortable or what have you. Maybe that is actually the priority here, not necessarily one that's going to give you like the biggest return on investment, because I feel like business leaders, and especially entrepreneurs who are like, budgets are tight, revenue, like how can we like maximize? I gotta maximize because I gotta feed my kids family over here. I want to maximize my ROI, so I'm going to go after this one. But maybe short term yes, but long term no. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Uh, you're right. I think often when we look at smaller organizations and we're trying to prioritize, we'll quickly go to the, oh, but if we can just automate our entire supply chain, like that's our one thing, right? But if you think about that, how many steps are actually in that one thing to, automate your entire supply chain? So, if you come up with this grand scheme that, okay, we're going to automate the entire supply chain, awesome. But what does that actually mean? Like, what's the first thing that you would need to do? Does that mean the first thing you need to do is get a up-to-date inventory or a stock take of everything that's in your supply chain? Then actually that's the one thing, So instead of kind of coming up with some big umbrella political term, it's actually really breaking it down to kind of go, okay, that sounds great, Scott, but what does that actually mean? Like let's pull that back. Let's pop the bonnet and have a look at what that really looks like on the inside.
No, 100%. And let me tell you, as a guy who's currently working on automation of the Canadian Armed Forces supply chain, it is a difficult beast to tackle. You are not
Exactly.
automating that thing, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But I love your point, though. What I hear from you, all jokes aside here, is taking that big thing, that big problem. Let's break it down to smaller problems that are easily chewed up, eaten, taken care of, right?
How do
That
you eat an
that is what
elephant,
we do,
right?
right? One bite at a time, just like everything
Chunk
else, just
chunk
like a
that
steak.
sucker down. Yeah.
Absolutely. Which makes it more manageable for you, it makes it more manageable for your team, enables you to actually watch your progress. So I absolutely love it, because I find what happens with leaders out there is they end up in analysis paralysis, because when they don't break it down into smaller bits, and they just don't, back to earlier, just don't know where to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And we often end up then, as you said, with the analysis paralysis. But the other thing that happens then is we end up with that sunk cost thing, right? Oh, well, I've bought into this system because I was sold that that's going to solve all my problems. And now we're 6 months down the pathway with this thing and we've dropped a couple of 100K and half the team hate it. So they refuse to use it. But we've got to keep pushing forward. Sometimes it's actually quicker in the end to slow down at the beginning and go, okay, what does this really look like? If this is our end game, what does that really look like? Let's pull out the sticky notes and sit down around the table and go, okay, if automating our supply chain is the end goal, where does that start? Okay, George, you put the orders in. Okay, what does that look like? Okay, George, get up on the whiteboard and write that down. Okay, well, that's the first bit. Then who's that go to from George? Oh, Jane. Okay, Jane, you do the. So, once you map out that entire journey, you might go, there's the piece. It's the piece from Jane to George that is getting caught in a bottleneck. So that's the piece we need to start with. We can actually find something there that's going to speed that process up, which is then going to cause, a bit of a domino effect that's going to make everything else easier after that. It might be, like you said, the end result doesn't end up being that you automate the entire supply chain, because you might realize along that way that actually we kind of still need here, here, and here a human to go, oh, yeah, we're doing good. No, something's gone pear-shaped here. We need to pull that out and have a look at it. So you might realize by chunking it down like that the actual win is not to automate the entire process. It's to automate this chunk and then have human oversight, this chunk, then have human oversight. But you're not going to do that if you don't sit around the table with everybody, even if you think they're not involved in that process, because you'll be surprised, oh, marketing actually has a say in that bit, or legals need to double check the contracts, but you're not going to know that unless you're all sitting around the table together.
No, I love this. This is why the human element is so important still, because you need people to, identify all these steps. And then I would argue maybe even more important, identify the risks, and maybe the risks in automation, because there's going to be some steps where we're like, ooh, if we automate and there's a problem, like this is the risk associated with that, because no one will know. Okay, well, how do we mitigate? And then you kind of go down that rabbit hole. So I absolutely love that. I love that line of thought. See, it's super practical, something that the listener out there can dig into. Now, we talked a bit about the fears at the beginning. We've talked about bringing it on and that 1%, and kind of chewing the elephant a little bit bite at a time. I'd love to dive a little bit into culture and organizational culture around this, because that's going to be another bit, right? That you're going to have to that people are going to have to fight, especially those in like highly regulated industries, or like unions involved, and all these different things, because like I said earlier, I'm working on a modernization plan for my work, and the first thing out of my mind out of my mouth, every time I talk about it is, this is not about replacing jobs, right? So, I have to build the culture as we're building the capability too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts there about how leaders can help build that culture to embrace this new technology, to use it so you don't end up with, as you mentioned earlier, that sunk cost fallacy of like, oh, we got half the team using it, the other half not using it, etc.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in that for me. I mean, the first is that, this isn't about the world going digital. It's about the world going intelligent. And leaders now need to redefine what leadership actually means. And for me, that's really learning about how to lead with technology and not fear it. So it's back to that, leadership, AI being the leadership literacy of the current era. And I think, building in that adaptability into the culture, and really allowing and encouraging curiosity and encouraging adaptability, and understanding that AI now is just a piece of being an adaptable leader, or a piece of building an adaptable culture. Because things are moving so quickly, we need to build in that confidence to fail fast, fail forward, right? Like, oh, okay, that didn't work. That's okay. Like, let's just move on to the next thing, because we've learned X, Y, and Z from that. So we know now that we don't have to go down those paths. We can, chop it there and move on. I think with the, it's all about bringing in that learning mindset, and thinking through now that these AI tools are, assistants. So it's back to that being collaborative, not competitive. We've got to treat them like we would a smart intern, right? I see so many times that we organizations bring in this AI tool. They go, oh my God, Scott, we're going to put in like AI. It's going to be great. We're going to automate this. We're going to da-da-da. But they don't train it, right? Like they just expect the AI to suddenly like know what it's doing. So I'm really about saying to people, treat this stuff like you would an intern, treat this stuff like you would a new employee. You've got to set it up for success. And that's part of the culture. That's part of the leadership to go, if you're bringing something in, you're enrolling a new team member into your organization. So what's the first thing you do on day one when Scott joins the organization? You probably organize a morning tea, you show them around the office, you go, hey, this is what we do here, here's the lunchroom, your breaks are here, here, and here, here's your policy and procedures manual. This is Karen in HR. She's the one you got to watch out for, but everyone else is pretty nice. You set Scott up for a successful, run into the organization. And I think our leadership teams now need to be thinking about AI and culture in exactly the same way.
Love it. I love warning off the AI tool that Karen in HR is the one to watch out for.
Yeah, we've always got to watch out for Karen in HR.
All the Karens listening to this show just groaned and stopped, and now they've unsubscribed. Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate that.
Apologies for that. But now we can really get to all the Karens. We're actually revolting. It'll be 5 p.m. on the hill. Bring pitchforks. I'm kidding.
It's tough being alone as a leader. You're often in situations where you're not sure where to go. You're not sure what's the best decision. Yet, as Colin Powell once said, it's lonely at the top. And reality is, it takes time. Sure, you can read books and listen to podcasts such as this one, but nothing beats experience. But who has time for experience when you're at a situation right now that requires experience to lead yourself, your team, your organization through? That's where coaching comes in. You see, coaching enables you to unlock the experience in others. Right here, right now, you have 20 years of military service plus 150 plus episodes of interviews and topics and research sitting at your disposal. So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to level up your game? Become that leader that you know you're meant to be? Are you ready to go to the next level? If so, drop me a line, scott@movingforwardleadership.com, or swing by the website and book a discovery call through movingforwardleadership.com/book. And let's get you moving in the right direction, leading better, leading more effectively today, right here, right now. Starting off with leading yourself. And then let's focus on how you can build your high-performing team to drive your organization's output higher, faster, harder today. Not next week, not next month, but today. All right, folks, that's it. Now let's get back to the show.
But let's get back to the point. Like what I really enjoyed is training it like it's a smart intern. That was phenomenal, by the way. But it's so true because like everyone's just like, oh, do this. Like, no, like even the tools I use, I'm still very deliberate about like, okay, this is what I need out of you. Here are the parameters which I need it, et cetera, et cetera. And I even use my own delegation tactics that I use with my team on my AI. Like, do you have any follow-up questions? Like, I'll even put that in there.
Yeah.
And it'll yes, it does. Let me tell you, every time. I'm like, okay. Which is great. And I think one of the tricks I like the most, and I'm not trying to hijack your show here, but one of the tricks I like the most is when I do something, I'm writing a document or, doing a presentation or whatever I'm doing with the AI tool. I'm like, okay, you are now, audience, whoever this is for, look at it and tell me what you think. And that is so super powerful. So for the listener, they're like, that is like my number one trick for ChatGPT or any AI tool of that nature. Like, and you're doing up, let's say, I use it to help craft my emails to my team. Like to my, I'm like, hey, write me this email about this topic. Here are the sub points I want to hit. Here are the details to incorporate, this type of tone, whatever. And then, I'll spit it out. I'll review it. I'll edit it. And then I'm like, okay, you're now one of my team members. And I'll explain to what my team member is like. And like, what do you think about this message? And it's fine, and I just fine tune it. It's phenomenal that way. It works so well.
I do think it's interesting that, and it's this bit of a phenomena that I don't kind of understand how it came about, but it seems to be here. And that is that we buy a AI tool off the shelf, let's say it's ChatGPT or, any other kind of large language model or whatever. And we just assume that it knows. So we'll go write a social media post. And so it writes a social media post and then we go, oh, that's really beige. And then we shut it down and we don't play with it. When we're talking with humans or we're sitting, you're talking about your young boy earlier jumping on and you did a Facebook Live with him and you had to kind of cut him off for a while because he did, like, you've got to teach them. So why do we think that AI is going to be different to everything else that we've dealt with previously? Any child growing up, you've got to give it parameters. Okay, you are going to do this. We need it done by this time. As you said, here are your subpoints. Here's what I want you to understand. Now you go and design that any way you want, as long as it fits within these parameters. Have you got any questions for me? Okay, no, awesome, go. It'll give you something back. You go, great, first draft. Okay, now I want you to think about X, blah, 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 blah. So I think, if any Karens that are still listening take nothing else away, take away the fact that you need to think about your AI like a colleague. Sit down across the table. I call mine Linus, as in the Peanuts character that used to drag around the security blanket, because that's what it's become for me. But it's also a bit of a nerd joke about the old Linus software. But my point is, I treat it like I'm sitting down and having a coffee with a mate. G'day, how's your morning going? I've been watching this. Hey, we're going to work on this today. Because that puts me in the frame of mind that I am treating it like a collaborator, not a competitor.
Love it. I love it. Now, we've talked a lot about, today and how we can use AI today and how we can implement it, steps and culture and all kinds of amazing stuff. Sorry, Karen. And it's been fantastic, but I'm also a very proactive, future thinking type of person. I think leaders out there need to be. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, where is this going? Because my perspective, we're at the tip of the tip here. Like, this is like we're like the first snowflake on top of the iceberg. And by the way, I'm from a place in Canada where I see iceberg all the time. I don't know what's so amazing about them. They're just big hunking chunks of ice. Anyway, I digress. But we're at the very top of that thing. It's a long way down. So where do you see this going? And most importantly, how can leaders prepare their teams for where this is?
Yeah, look, shake the magic 8-ball, right? Like, that's kind of, we can have a guess, and we've got some pretty good kind of indicators of what's happening this year. But as I say to my clients all the time, ChatGPT kind of came out of nowhere in 2022. DeepSeek came out of nowhere, from left field, honest. So these big strides, I think they're still going to kind of come at us from left field, and we're going to have to go, okay, that's a thing now. Let's deal with that. We can push forward and we can kind of, have those ideas. So the next big thing that we're seeing happening right now is agentic agents. And I'm sure you've probably heard of them. That's where we're moving away from interacting or just getting tasks completed to it actually being able to take that task and then complete it to a sequence. So like a workflow sequence. Or I'll give you an example. I was speaking at a conference organizers summit last week, and they were talking about organizing, restaurants for participants coming to venues, flying in from other countries, etc. And they were saying how much time it takes to ring restaurants and get bookings and blah 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 blah. So we just hooked up this agent. It took us about half an hour in a workshop. We hooked up this agent and got it starting to ring out and inquire about bookings for X amount of people with these kind of dietary requirements and yada, yada, yada. So it was able to, again, gave it the parameters. We're looking for X amount of seats on, blah night. These are our dietary requirements, etc. And we said, 20K from the hotels that people are staying at, and let it go out and ring and do the bookings, right? Or give us the pricings and things. And then the human was able to sit down and instead of making those 100 phone calls, just look through a list and go, okay, here are our options, and then run that through the AI and get a report back to kind of go, okay, well, within budget, here's what we can do. So that's the stuff that's kind of happening now. That's the next big thing. In terms of the next big breakthrough, the thing that I'm really watching is the crossover between robotics and AI. So I think that's a really interesting field. And I think we're going to see a lot of progression in that, over the next 12, 18 months, because we're starting to see a lot of robotics that are, their dexterity is off the charts now. That one of the hardest things that they've been trying to get robots to do is tie shoelaces, right? Because when you think about that from a human perspective, it is actually a really difficult thing to do, and they're at a point now where they can get them to do that, right? So if you think about, and I don't know what workforce conditions are like in Canada, but in Australia, we're having a really hard time getting workers into certain regions. Like we just don't have enough people to do the jobs. So when you think about, okay, maybe we can deploy X amount of robots to, build the housing or, wire or do the electrical, or maybe it's aged care, places where humans are getting injured from lifting patients or doing dangerous work. I think there's a huge opportunity. And of course, we've got the, the unions and things that we'll need to navigate what that looks like. But I think that's a really interesting area. China recently launched their very first AI hospital. I don't know if you heard about that. That's fascinating to me. So completely AI-driven, AI doctors, AI nurses, AI admin, can treat up to 10,000 patients a day, has a success rate for respiratory illnesses over 85%, which is off the charts compared to human intervention. You think about being able to deploy that into war-torn locations or third world locations or regional locations. Like there's some areas in Australia we just can't get doctors. So I think there's a lot of very quick advancements to be made, and a lot of really interesting, flow-on areas for what does that mean. So in terms of leadership, what does that mean? I say to my guys all the time, look outside your own industry. If you're in healthcare and you're looking in healthcare, you're missing the stuff that's coming. If you're in healthcare, look at what's happening in mining, look at what's happening in agriculture, and then think about, okay, that's interesting. How could that idea be deployed in my area? What would that look like if I just tweaked that concept and implemented 1% of that into my culture, my team, my area? Because it's when we look, peer over the fence and kind of go, what's going on over there, that I think often the magic happens.
Wow, that was a lot.
Sorry.
You
got me on my little soapbox, man.
But it was awesome. Like I did not hear about that hospital in China. That is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow. The robot thing, it sparked me because I was at a exposition in Chicago for work this year called ProMat, and I had a robot serve me ice cream.
Yeah, right.
with
Nice.
sprinkles.
Did it get the sprinkles right? What was the ratio of sprinkles to ice cream like?
Oh, I didn't do the calculation. Sorry, but it was a good serving of sprinkles on the ice cream. Let me tell you.
Right.
No, it literally
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So you handed it a ticket, and which had a QR code on it, which told it, okay, get me ice cream with sprinkles. You could have picked a bunch of different things, but it went over to the ice cream maker, pulled the cup out of the cup holder, and then put the cup underneath the ice cream, and pulled the lever for it to come out, and did the good serving, and then took that, went over, took the spoon, went to the sprinkles, took the lid off the box of the sprinkles, and then used the spoon to scoop up the sprinkles and spread it onto the ice cream. Put the spoon into the ice cream, handed it to you, and then gave you a fist pump as it left.
Wow. See, that just blows my mind, right? Like that just
It's incredible.
blows my mind. And when you think
And
about
then
like,
here's the kicker. So here's the kicker to finish off the story. One of the guys I was there with for work went to Vegas for a personal trip, and he got served drinks at the bar by a robot.
yeah, a lot of the
So
cruise ships now have robotic bartenders.
robots, right? Because like you said, it's hard to find people. It's hard to. I don't know what happened, but it seemed like the workforce seemed to disappear since COVID and has not returned. And everyone is, you look around, everywhere has help wanted signs.
Yeah,
and even,
exactly.
And you mentioned a great point about, unions and stuff like this. And that's one of the things which I have to worry about as well with my project. I'm like, don't worry, because I literally have a list of things which we are either not doing or we're not doing good enough. And what are we going to do? We're going to automate, and then the savings of personnel we have through automation, we're going to put them on this list of items here, because we need to do better. Like, we're supposed to be doing better.
Yeah.
And so don't worry. This is about this.
And that's the thing that gets me, right? Like it comes back to this, collaboration, not competitive. Like that's what I keep coming back to all the time. It's not, don't see it as an us and them. See it as, we cannot get people to do these jobs. So don't even worry about, is AI going to take the jobs? We can't get people to do the jobs. Like, let the AI do the jobs that we can't get the people to do. And then, our humans can level up and become the creative, strategic leaders that we need them to be.
Love it. Tracy, my God, we've covered some serious ground today. Probably enough ground to cover Australia. Is there anything that you would think would be important to the listener that we haven't touched yet?
Oh, mate, we didn't even get to talk about the silicon-based computing, or the mushrooms that can move based on light now. So I think we've got a lot of stuff that we can talk about. We're going to have to do more podcasts, Scott. I think it's going to come down to that. Just be curious. Be curious, adopt a curious mindset, adopt a learning mindset, be adaptable, look at it as a collaboration, not a competition, and treat your AI like you would want to treat an intern or one of your own kids. As you said, this thing is like 3-year-old. It's still walking around and bumping into walls. It's never going to be as clumsy, as slow, as latent as it is right now. So you have a fabulous opportunity to get on the wagon now and ride this sucker for all it's worth.
That's a great way to wrap this up. Tracy, again, this has been fantastic. Final question to show. How can people find you, follow you, be part of your journey? Shameless plug, have at it. It's all about you.
Awesome. I'd send a smoke signal up. Check me out on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much all over the place. Just usually add the .com.au because I am based in Australia. So, you might need to whack the .au on the end of anything if you're looking for me.
Awesome. And for the listeners, always, it's easy. Just go to the show notes of this episode, which is always lead.boss.com/the episode number in digits. And I'll take you to show notes, and all the links are there. So thank you again, Tracy. Taking time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. It's been great.
And that's a wrap for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. thank you for supporting the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. But you know what you could do to truly support the podcast? And no, that's not leaving a rating and review. It's simply helping a friend. And that is helping a friend by sharing this episode with them if you think this would resonate with them and help them elevate their performance level, whether that's within themselves, their teams, or their organization. So do that, help me, help a friend, win-win all around, and hey, you look like a great friend at the same time. So just hit that little share button on your app, and then feel free to fire this episode to anyone that you feel would benefit from it. Finally, there's always more. There's always more lessons around being the highest performing leader that you can possibly be, whether that's for yourself, your team, or your organization. So why don't you subscribe? Subscribe to the show via movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. And until next time, lead, don't boss, and thanks for coming out. Take care now.